cocktail sessions, educational and inspirational talks from experienced startup founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders.
Cool. So hey everybody, I'm Matt Brimer, I'm co-founder of General Assembly. Stark and I share a lot of shared philosophy and ideas around education. It's just cool to hear her give a little bit of a prelude to some of the topics I want to chat about. So I want to tell you a little bit of just the background on kind of how General Assembly came to be, a little bit of my story to kind of set that up, and then there's a couple of lessons learned about entrepreneurship and education that we found to be meaningful over the last couple of years in building General Assembly. So, a few years ago, I guess back in 2007, I was still in school. I was in college and was working on a few different entrepreneurial projects, everything from an antique furniture acquisition and auction company to eventually a social gaming startup, which was a company that we started in 2007, built our little team, raised a couple million in venture capital. This is while myself and my other co-founders were college students, mind you. Looking back, I probably wouldn't have given myself millions in venture capital as a college student, but happy that the investors did that at the time. We were essentially, that company was trying to take real-world offline social interaction, specifically around affinity groups and rivalries, and take them online and allow people to kind of compete and socialize in a fun, competitive way in an online context. This is kind of pre-location-based services, pre-Foursquare, pre-iPhone, but it was this game kind of like Risk. You can imagine Risk, but on the internet, and rather than a map of the world, it's a map of your college campus. Anyway, did that for a couple years. Raised money. We had people in New York. We had some employees in San Francisco. We had a bunch of small army of interns in New Haven, and unfortunately, we never really figured out how to generate any revenue, which apparently is important for running a business, right? Making money, so they say. But we tried to raise another round of capital in, I guess, late 2008, early 2009. It wasn't happening. We had also made probably every first-time founder mistake in the book. Eventually, by spring of 2009, we had to close things down and wind up the company. We had to let everyone go, which was not a fun time if any of you guys have ever had to shut down a company and admitted, to yourself and your peers and colleagues and family that, well, this thing that you were so passionate about, the startup that you were working on for so long, well, it failed, largely due to a whole variety of factors, some of which, you have to take responsibility for yourself. So that wasn't a fun time, but it was, looking back, it was extremely educational and I think very necessary for the creation of General Assembly. And I have to say, without a doubt, that General Assembly wouldn't exist or be anywhere near as successful as we've been fortunate enough to have been if we hadn't had those early entrepreneurial adventures and misadventures and had some failures along the way. So I moved to New York after shutting that company down. Didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I knew I wanted to start a new venture, do some new entrepreneurial, project or start something. So I started to get involved in the community. I knew a small handful of people, but I wanted to know more. So I was going to events, I was going to meetups, starting to go meet up with people for coffee, get involved in the community, start to host some events of my own, and was really seeing this crescendo of activity happen in New York. This is now 2009 into kind of early 2010. I think one of there are a whole variety of factors, but one of the factors was that the recession really brought down the opportunity cost for a lot of people to leave their traditional corporate jobs and pursue a startup themselves, either getting something off the ground or to join an emerging company. And I think the traditional corporate jobs became less secure and less available, and it kind of forced people to start considering alternative career paths. I was just reading something today that I think about a quarter of the U.S. working population has some sort of freelance, is either full-time freelance or some sort of part-time or not full-time work that's bringing in income. And so you're seeing that go up over the last few years. We thought about, as we were seeing this crescendo of activity in New York and more people getting into the startup world or seeking to interact and engage, we thought about well, what's kind of the core, the center here? What's kind of bringing people together in a meaningful hub or a nucleus? And there wasn't really anything like that. There were a couple incubators, there were some co-working spaces, there were particular hotel lobbies and coffee shops that were highly frequented by particular members of the community. But there was no central place of community and learning and collaboration and work. And we thought, well, what if we created this? Something that I wanted to see, was something that lots of other people in the community wanted to see. And so we ended up building this kind of grassroots, community of supporters and people who were interested in this idea. And eventually, there's enough momentum and traction, even just as an idea, that we ended up pulling some triggers. We signed a 10-year lease on a big 20,000 square foot loft space in the Flatiron district of Manhattan, which was kind of right at the center corridor of a lot of the startup and tech activity happening there. We managed to get a grant from the city of New York, a few $100,000 to help pay for some construction. And then part of the General Assembly campus in New York is dedicated co-working space. And we're not an incubator or an accelerator, so we don't take any equity, we don't make any investments, we're not attached to any VC, that's not the goal. We just wanted to get a really, really high quality community of startups and practitioners in the space and actually working out of the campus and using it as their full-time home. So we pre-selected a lot of the inaugural startups who were going to move in. We also lined up some corporate sponsors, and we kind of cobbled together enough cash to finish construction, build the place out, and then eventually move in and turn the lights in, I guess, January of 2001. And ever since then, it's been a pretty wild ride. We started running classes and events about 1 or 2 months in after launch. And at first, we had this idea, okay, we're going to bring in some university professors, and we're going to have some real-world practitioners come, and we're going to kind of curate and select those individuals, and they're going to share knowledge and expertise that they have. And we tried that for a few weeks, and we found that almost across the board, nobody was interested in hearing from the university professors. That they were getting off topic, they were a little bit too academic, too esoteric, too theoretical, but everyone really loved hearing from the practitioners. And what we found after doing this for now 2 years, almost 2 years, but just in the first several months, we found that there was this increasing demand for practical skills that were relevant to people's careers right then. Right, so if you're a working professional, right, you're building a startup, you have a job, whatever it is, it might be too much for you to consider, too much of a commitment for you to consider. All right, I'm going to take 2 years off of life, 2 years off of work, right, and go and pursue an MBA program, right, and spend a lot of time and money and effort to get a graduate degree or go back to school or something like that. And instead, what we found is that people are coming to us and they're like, look, I'm supposed to be meeting with a VC tomorrow, and I'm working on my pitch deck, but I've never pitched before, and you have a class tonight on creating a pitch deck for, getting in front of a venture capitalist. And we had that class, a 90-minute class, introductory, with an instructor who had done this a bunch of times before, and they were able to come, take the class, get exactly what they needed, and then go home and put that into practice. And the more that we kept doing these classes and putting these things on and bringing in practitioners to share specific areas of knowledge and specific expertise that they had, we found that there was this bigger insight at hand. And that insight was that a traditional liberal arts or college education isn't really enough anymore for today's world. And there's this gap between where traditional liberal arts college education leaves off and then where the 21st century begins. And that gap is widening. Right? There are skills and methodologies and proficiencies and areas of knowledge that just literally aren't being offered in traditional academic institutions, but that are very, very relevant and increasingly valuable today. And so the kinds of things that I'm talking about when we think about what does vocational education look like in the 21st century? Or if you were to design a trade school for the new economy, what would that be? What would you teach? Well, you wouldn't teach auto mechanics or plumbing. Right? You would teach web development, you would teach data science, you would teach user experience design, you'd teach user acquisition marketing, social media analytics, negotiation tactics, things like this, which are practical and kind of skills-oriented in nature, as opposed to being kind of purely theoretical, but that have a real outcome orientation to them. And that's really the insight that we had, and now that's exactly what we're doing. So 2 years later, after launch, we now have 30,000 square foot campus in 2 different buildings in New York. We have an operation running classes and workshops in and have small campuses or pop-up spaces in San Francisco, London, Berlin, LA, Boston, Sydney. And actually in 2013, we're going to be coming here to Las Vegas, which is super exciting. Excited about that. Tony, through Vegas Tech Fund, actually participated in our last fundraising round, raised a Series B, so it's exciting to have that be a good partnership. A couple of the key learnings, through all of this that we came to was, one, there's this kind of there's a how can I describe it? There's kind of an intangible but extremely important connection between community and education. And what we found was that there was this big benefit in having all these startups and entrepreneurs and practitioners physically coming into our campus every single day, interacting with each other, interacting with us, interacting with our instructional design team, curriculum developers, and also our students. And the people up in the front of the classroom teaching, right? And the people who are running workshops, leading students through projects, and actually helping us to develop their curriculum were practitioners. And so having a community of people who are doing things, building products, building companies on the cutting edge of a lot of these trends was invaluable to the students who are coming in to learn, right? Data science as a field didn't exist a few years ago, and now it's one of the, and it will be, a field with an incredible amount of jobs, an incredible amount of demand from employers looking for people with these proficiencies. And having that relevance and that kind of currency to how education is built and then delivered, we found to be very valuable, right? So any of these technical or kind of emerging 21st century fields, they're changing so rapidly, right? You can't have a year-long process of updating a syllabus and getting new curriculum in place so that it can be in place, the following semester. No, if some new, library comes out, or there's some new best practice or some new way of doing things that's the norm, you need to implement it now, right? Students need to know exactly what's happening right now so that they can go home or go back to their office or their co-working space or whatever, their startup, and immediately put it into practice. So having that community of practitioners involved in education was really important. If traditional academia separates learning from the real world, we wanted learning and doing to be happening, right in the same physical sense. The other thing we discovered was the importance of people coming together in a physical environment. And even though everything is continually moving online, and as Stark was talking about, you have these massively open online courses that are bringing education to huge numbers of people. But what we found was that despite all of that, and despite all these startups building purely digital products, people would come into General Assembly every single day wanting to network, wanting to just collaborate, wanting to be in an environment with like-minded peers and be in a community. And the community of General Assembly, there's classes and there's students and then there's entrepreneurs, and there's little pockets, right, that people spend time. But just the kind of emotional level, right, of camaraderie with people coming in and knowing that you're an entrepreneur, maybe you're building a company, you're just starting out, or you're learning a new skill. It's very nice to know that you're not alone, right? It's very nice to know that you have peers around you who are also, maybe they're coming from different industries, maybe they have different backgrounds, maybe they're working on a different project, but you know that you can relate to them. You're both working on hard problems, right? You're both doing something related to technology or design or entrepreneurship. You're both very passionate, right? You're both, trying to do something that changes, the world in some small way at least. And so, we found that to be something that people are really looking for. And to a certain extent, I think, there's certain kinds of interactions that happen offline that just can't be replicated online. So when we think about our users and our customers, if you just have an app and maybe, you have some buggy code and someone breaks, someone does something wrong, they break the site, you have to go back and fix it, right? That happens for us too. But also, we'll have someone who comes in and they'll, accidentally elbow a beer sitting on the countertop, and it'll fall down behind some shelves. Won't even know about it until the following week when it starts to smell, right? And we have to fix that. So there's not exactly, someone breaking the code, but it's kind of the offline version. So those are all those little things that you have to deal with. But I think it's rewarding to have a community and have an interaction with your customers and with your users where you're actually interacting with them face to face. So I'll kind of wrap it up. But anyway, excited to be here and excited to be coming to Las Vegas in 2013. And I think that the demand that we've seen for this kind of practical, skills-oriented education and a community of people who are coming together to not only learn with each other, but also kind of help each other, advance their goals and pursue whatever they want, is something we found really valuable. And I think it speaks to a lot of the bigger ideas that the Downtown Project is talking about, and a lot of the things which the other speakers today have touched upon, right? The ideas of collaboration, the ideas of passion, in what you're doing, and the importance of skills, and the importance of kind of moving forward into the 21st century as opposed to just doing things as they've been done. So anyway, thanks a lot.